life. So what I want to do now, if we're on to the right track here, that the key to this man's life, what made him unique, what gave luster to all his accomplishments, was his passion for holiness in himself and others, I want to ask the question next, well, why should we listen to this man? Why should his talk and life about holiness arrest our attention more than other holy people that we know about in life or in church history? And here's my answer to that question. There aren't many people today who say what he said, namely, personal holiness is an essential component of worthy leadership. Our president certainly does not believe that. I hope I'm not saying anything than what I read on the front page of the Tribune, when our president refused to deny the allegations of his own misconduct, lack of holiness, and simply said, that's irrelevant. John Owen would have dropped dead at that statement. If he stood up before the Congress of the United States of America, the issue would be adultery. The issue would be holiness. God will not bless, he would say, a nation whose leaders are unholy, no matter how much savvy they have in the world. That's one reason I think we need to take a man like this seriously. There aren't many around. Not in the church either. I mean, who would you look to today as statesman-like church leaders who are known for the fact that they put personal holiness above church growth? There are many pastors who believe that. But where are the leaders who are known for that note? There aren't many. You've got to go to dead people to get heroes. Well, Owen is a good one, I think. A third reason why I think he's valuable today to listen to is because he achieved his holiness not as a hermit. I mean, when I get excited about holiness and spiritual mindedness and communion with God, my first inclination is take a break. Ask for a month off. Go away from the trouble. He never went away. He never went away. Richard Baxter didn't like Owen. They were contemporaries, hitting heads. He called him the great doer. It was a scornful word. This guy's always doing. Well, who's Baxter to tell? Good night. What he achieved, he wrote a lot more than Owen did. He was involved in academic administration. He was involved in politics up to his ears. He was involved in the leading military officers. He formed a little church out of the leading military officers. He was embroiled in every controversy from the authenticity of the Hebrew vowel points. He wrote an awful work on that, which history has wonderfully buried. And the authenticity of the epistle to Ignatius, all the way up to whether or not a church should be congregational or Presbyterian, and whether the doctrine of justification should be Catholic or Protestant. I mean, he was embroiled in almost every controversy of his day. He'd hear John Goodwin say something about perseverance, and boom, he'd dash off 660 pages to prove that he's wrong. This man was just constantly churning stuff. He was looked to by thousands of congregational independents as the main spokesman in England of his day, while all the while pastoring people in the last 23 years of his life. So my point is, the holiness of this man was not cultivated by having long summer breaks, which a lot of senior pastors enjoy. Take 10, 12 weeks off because the pressures are heavy, and then you can be holy. You can get more holy because you've got more time on your hands. Something is fishy here. If Owen can pull this off and have him known so that Commentator after commentator says his holiness equaled his erudition. That's one quote I saw around. Why? How did he do it? Not only that, add this to it. When you have that kind of leadership and you're embroiled in those kinds of controversies, you are absolutely stormed with criticism. And it can really hurt. For example, he was in an argument with a fellow named Parker, and he bested him. Parker got worsted. Those are words I read in these books. He got worsted because he was bested by Owen, and so he resorted to doing what most people today do when in the public arena they get bested. I mean, we don't even have discourse to get bested in today. We just start with name calling. The great bellwether of disturbance and sedition. A person who would have vied with Mohammed himself, both for boldness and imposture. A viper so swollen with venom that it must either burst or spit its poison. Now, how much of that can you take in public before people start believing it about you? And you start trying, like Jonathan Edwards said, to take every criticism seriously and find the germ of truth in it. You know, and you stay up half the night saying, now, is what that person said true, Lord? I mean, how do you survive that kind of... And add this to this. This is all just to show you how the achievement of holiness blows my mind away. Not only did he experience criticism from his enemies, he got a letter. This is just a little example. From John Eliot, the missionary in New England, another one of my heroes. And he had misunderstood Owen. I mean, I don't know what all the facts were. There's just a letter in here, and you don't know what's behind it. But he criticized Owen for something on holiness. And Owen is so stung, he writes, "What I have received from you hath printed deeper and left a greater impression upon my mind than all the virulent revilings and false accusations I have met with all from my professed adversaries. That I should now be apprehended to have given a wound unto holiness in the churches, it is one of the saddest frowns in the cloudy brows of divine providence." So he didn't just have to deal with his enemies, he was being misunderstood by his friends. And that went deeper, he said, than anything the enemies said. Add this to it. It was a pre-technological age. He had no lights. He had no indoor plumbing. He had no computer, no pens, no ordinary paper that we have. Add that, the plague, 2 plagues, one in 55, one in 65. In 65, 70,000 people out of 500,000 died in London, among many in his parish, among them. Add that he was living outside the law this whole time. Couldn't settle down into an ordinary ministry and let the church grow too big, because then he's going to go right to jail between 62 and 89. And I conclude, he's worth listening to. If this man becomes holy and is known for his communion with God and his spiritual mindedness and his purity of heart and his integrity above his erudition, I want to know how he did it. That's the kind of question I ask when I'm reading back. So that's my closing thing here. How did he pursue holiness? And I know what I'm about to say is terribly inadequate, because I'm no Owen scholar. I've read 2 biographies and 3 or 4 of his books. That's all I've done to get ready here. Nothing you couldn't do in a few months like I did. But I'll tell you what I found and what I think is true, even though limited and maybe lopsided. I have 4 answers to the question how he pursued and achieved such a degree of holiness that he was known this way. Number 1, Owen humbled himself under the mighty hand of